former Israeli army officer and executive board member of the Jonathan Institute on World Terrorism in Jerusalem. Would you please welcome to the 700 Club, Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm so glad to have you with us.
If you take away the Soviet Union and its chief proxy, the PLO, international terrorism would collapse.
Israeli Deputy Foreign Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is in our Tel Aviv studios this morning. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. What is threatened by Iraq is not just Israel. Everybody is threatened by Iraq. If Saddam Hussein maintains, if he devours that prey and keeps it, he will go after other prey. If he gets out of Kuwait but remains with his war machine intact, who can say that tomorrow or a year or two from now he won't turn on some other target? It may not be Israel. It may be somebody else in the region. It could be Turkey. It could be Saudi Arabia again. It could be anyone.
During these last few months, you and I have witnessed one of the greatest dramas of the 20th century, the historic and revolutionary transformation of a totalitarian dictatorship, the Soviet Union, and the liberation of its peoples. The United States recognizes and welcomes the emergence of a free, independent, and democratic Russia led by its courageous president, Boris Yeltsin. The United States also recognizes the independence of Ukraine, Armenia, Kazakhstan, Belarus, and Kyrgyzstan. The United States also recognizes today, as independent states, the remaining 6 former Soviet republics: Moldova, Turkmenistan, Azerbaijan, Tajikistan, Georgia, and Uzbekistan.
Hier ist das erste deutsche Fernsehen mit der Tagesschau. Guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Israel steht vor einem Machtwechsel. Der Vorsitzende des rechten Likud-Blockes, Benjamin Netanyahu, hat die erste direkte Wahl eines Ministerpräsidenten in dem Land gewonnen.
It is my great privilege, and I deem it a high honor and personal pleasure, to present to you His Excellency Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel.
If I can only get the Knesset to vote like this. I've touched on the problem of the Middle East that is largely undemocratic, and part of it is strongly anti-democratic. Specifically, it is being radicalized and terrorized by a number of unreconstructed dictatorships. The most dangerous of these regimes is Iran, that has wed a cruel despotism to a fanatic militancy. If this regime or its despotic neighbor Iraq were to acquire nuclear weapons, this could presage catastrophic consequences, not only for my country and not only for the Middle East, but for all of mankind.
To punish Saddam Hussein for invading Kuwait and to make sure he doesn't do anything like that again or worse, the UN imposed sanctions on Iraq, the harshest, most comprehensive sanctions in modern times. Very little goes into the country, virtually no oil goes out.
We have heard that 500,000 children have died. I mean, that's more children than died in Hiroshima. And you know, is the price worth it?
I think this is a very hard choice, but we think the price is worth it. It is a moral question, but the moral question is even a larger one. Don't we owe to the American people and to the American military and to the other countries in the region that this man not be a threat?
Well, how many days ago was it that he had this symbolic funeral for children, blaming the world community in general and the United States in particular for the death of Iraqi children? Let me remind you, when we got the United Nations resolution passed, we and the others who supported it, 986, to allow him to sell oil, to get food and medicine for his people, even while he was continuing to resist getting rid of his entire chemical and biological weapons arsenal, he delayed the full implementation of that for a year and a half.
One thing I'm sure people understand is that Israel has never initiated anything against Iraq in these years of toing and froing between Iraq and the international community.
Saddam Hussein must not be allowed to threaten his neighbors or the world with nuclear arms, poison gas, or biological weapons.
And while our strikes are focused on Iraq's military capabilities, there will be unintended Iraqi casualties. Indeed, in the past, Saddam has intentionally placed Iraqi civilians in harm's way in a cynical bid to sway international opinion.
Good evening. Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. America was targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining.
When you're faced with a terror network that consists both of states and organizations that have no bounds, they will strike again. They might strike very soon. I don't know that they won't. And the citizens of democracies must see themselves in a way as soldiers in this battle against terrorism. They have to be prepared to suffer.
Our enemy is a radical network of terrorists and every government that supports them.
And do the various critics, especially overseas, believe that a clear connection between Saddam and September 11th must be established before we have a right to prevent the next September 11th? Well, I think not.
You talked about a network of terror. Are there any other nations that you would recommend that the United States launch preemptive attacks upon at this point?
Iraq, Iran, and Libya are racing to develop nuclear weapons. So now what is the next step? I believe that the next step is to choose. It's not a question of whether you have to take action,
choose the right one.
but what kind of action and against whom. The question now is a practical question. What is the best place to proceed? It's not a question of whether Iraq's regime should be taken out, but when should it be taken out? It's not a question of whether you'd like to see a regime change in Iran, but how to achieve it. Iran has something that Iraq doesn't have. Iran has, for example, 250,000 satellite dishes. It has internet use. I once said to the heads of the CIA when I was prime minister that if you want to advance regime change in Iran, you don't have to go through the CIA cloak and dagger stuff. What you want to do is take very large, very strong transponders and just beam Melrose Place and Beverly Hills 2050 and all that into Tehran and into Iran, because that is subversive stuff. They watch it, the young kids watch it, the young people, they want to have the same nice clothes at the same houses and swimming pools and so on. On the other hand, if you take out Saddam's regime, I guarantee you that it will have enormous positive reverberations on the region. And I think that people sitting right next door in Iran, young people, and many others will say, the time of such regimes, of such despots, is gone. There is a new age, something new is happening.
Does Iraq possess weapons of mass destruction?
This is an opportunity to reach the British people and the forces of peace in the world. There is only one truth, and therefore, I tell you, as I have said on many occasions before, that Iraq has no weapons of mass destruction whatsoever. We challenge anyone who claims that we have to bring forward any evidence and present it to public opinion.
My fellow citizens, at this hour, American and coalition forces are in the early stages of military operations to disarm Iraq, to free its people, and to defend the world from grave danger.
We've heard nut jobs, especially in Iran, for a very long time. What makes you say we should take this nut job at his word? Why is this guy different than what we have seen with religious fanatics that are really only interested in power and not interested in the apocalypse?
Well, I was getting this question in the 1990s, and I said that the West really doesn't understand militant Islam. So I wrote a book in 1995, and I said that if the West doesn't wake up to the suicidal nature of militant Islam, the next thing you'll see is the militant Islam is bringing down the World Trade Center. Other not ideologies don't do that, but militant Muslims do, and they are competing. They have two strains: the Sunni type, led by Al-Qaeda, who have done the World Trade Center; the Shia types, led by Iran, who want to top that by having nuclear weapons with which they can dominate the world.
Diese historische Verantwortung Deutschlands ist Teil der Staatsräson meines Landes. Das heißt, die Sicherheit Israels ist für mich als deutsche Bundeskanzlerin niemals verhandelbar.
احنا اللي بلادنا محتله، فلسطين محتله والعراق محتله، وتقولوا الجزر على ذكر الاحتلالات هذه، تقولوا الجزر هذه ليس من مصلحه العرب ان تكون في عداوه بينه وبين ايران، ولا حتى بينه وبين تركيا ولا كل الامم هذه. مش من مصلحتنا ابدا نحن نساعد ايران علينا. ايران ما عندكمش منها مفر، يعني قصدي هذا جار ولا اخ مسلم وهذا اللي هو مش مصلحتنا نحن تكون ايران عدوتنا ونكون احنا عدوها. شو سبب تدمير العراق وغزو العراق وقتل مليون عراقي؟ وخلاص لقانا الامريكان يجاوبونا على هذا السؤال اللي حاير، لماذا العراق؟ شو سبب؟ بن لادن عراقي؟ ما هو عراقي. اللي ضربوا نيويورك عراقيين؟ ما هم عراقيين. اللي ضربوا البنتاغون عراقيين؟ ما هم عراقيين. في أسلحة دمار شامل عند العراق؟ ما عندها. تجي قوة أجنبية تحتل دولة عربية وتشنق رئيسها واحنا نتفرج عليهم ونضحكوا. وليش ما نحقوا في شنق صدام حسين؟ كيف يصير حرب يشنق ورئيس دولة عربية عضو في الجامعة العربية؟ لما تكلموا عن سياسة صدام حسين والخلافة معاه السياسة، ممكن كنا مختلفين سياسيين معاه، مختلفين حتى مع بعضنا نحن الآن. ما في حاجة تجمعنا أبدا إلا القاعة يعني. ليش ما يكون فيها تحقيق في مقتل صدام حسين؟ قيادة عربية بالكامل تقتل تشنق في المشانق واحنا نتفرج، لماذا؟ ما ممكن الدور جاي عليكم كلكم. اي نعم. ليش امريكا قاتلت مع صدام حسين ضد الخميني؟ كان صديقها. تشيني كان صديق لصدام حسين. رامسفيلد كان وزير دفاع الامريكا لما كان يدمروا في العراق، صديق حميم لصدام حسين، واخيرا باعوه وشنقوه. حتى انتم اصدقاء امريكا، نحن اصدقاء امريكا، بلاش نقول انتم، نحن اصدقاء امريكا كلنا قد توافق امريكا على شنقنا في يوم ما.
Whatever stage of development they might be in their nuclear weapons program in the next 10 years, during which they might foolishly consider launching an attack on Israel, we would be able to totally obliterate them. That's a terrible thing to say, but those people who run Iran need to understand that.
Because President Shimon Peres has confirmed the right-wing Likud leader Benjamin Netanyahu will be asked to form the country's next government.
We will crack the genetic code. We will cure the incurable. We will lengthen our lives. These innovations in my country and many of your countries offer humanity a sunlit future of unimagined promise. But if the most primitive fanaticism can acquire the most deadly weapons, the march of history could be reversed for a time.
We believe that all nuclear weapons have to be banned. And at the same time that all nations should have access to peaceful nuclear energy. It was quite clear who supports and sponsors terrorists these days. I mean, the terrorists in Afghanistan and Iraq, I ask you, are they more powerful today compared to before the invasion of these two countries by US and NATO troops? From the first day that US forces entered Iraq and Afghanistan, hundreds of thousands of people have lost their lives. The Zionist regime stockpiles hundreds of nuclear warheads, wages numerous wars in the Middle East region, and continues to threaten the people and nations of the region with acts of terror and threats of invasion. It enjoys the unconditional support of the United States government and its allies, and receives the necessary assistance to develop a nuclear weapons program.
What justifies everything is the removal of a threat. I mean, Saddam Hussein, weapons or no weapons, which would have been a threat had he remained in power. In other words, one could envision a nuclear arms race between Saddam and Iran, and then they'd have been saying, wait a minute, the failure to act created enormous stress.
I can tell you that Iran is a very brutal regime. It brutalizes its own people. It sponsors terrorism left and right against my own country, against others, and it calls for the destruction of the Jewish state.
Libya is tonight in turmoil. There is fighting between security forces and anti-government protesters in the capital. Several cities in the east appear to be in the hands of the opposition.
They are not to blame because they are too young. They're only 16 or 17. They just want to copy what's happening in Tunisia and Egypt, and this is normal. And that's because some groups who infiltrated our cities are giving those youth hallucination pills.
This is Libya, which is about 100 times the size of Israel. Egypt, about 40 times the size of Israel. This is the Sinai Desert. Saudi Arabia, God knows how many times. Iraq, Syria, Iran. You want to see Israel now? Here's Israel. My finger covers it with the West Bank. Everything. So it's a tiny country. Tiny, surrounded, well, shall we say, living in a very tough neighborhood.
Colonel Gaddafi needs to step down from power and leave.
Gaddafi was brought in from the cold several years ago after giving up his weapons of mass destruction. The United States and other countries lifted sanctions and started doing business with Gaddafi again.
Do you feel betrayed by the United States? How do you account for how they are towards you now today?
Of course, it's a betrayal, a big betrayal. And there are no manners. It's silliness, beyond silliness.
Today, I authorize the armed forces of the United States to begin a limited military action in Libya in support of an international effort to protect Libyan civilians.
Millions of Arabs have taken to the streets to replace tyranny with liberty. And no one would benefit more than Israel if those committed to freedom and peace would prevail.
Good afternoon, everybody. Today, the government of Libya announced the death of Muammar Gaddafi. Without putting a single U.S. service member on the ground, we achieved our objectives, and our NATO mission will soon come to an end.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Ladies and gentlemen, if it looks like a duck, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, then what is it? What is it? That's right. It's a duck, but this duck is a nuclear duck. And it's time the world started calling a duck a duck. If these are the facts, and they are, where should a red line be drawn? A red line should be drawn right here. Before Iran completes the second stage of nuclear enrichment necessary to make a bomb.
Can one country, based on just their own sole opinion, decide and establish a red line for another country and then threaten attacks? When have we threatened to attack the Zionists? We have never threatened them.
You have said you
we have said that
from the face of the earth.
Yes. And let me explain. I have explained several times, but let me explain. We say that occupations should be done away with. Warlike behavior should be done away with. Terrorism should be done away with. The killing of women and children should be done away with. The bombardment of houses on top of people's heads in their own countries must be done away with. Has the Zionist regime done anything other than this during the last 65 years? No, they haven't.
And I have to tell you, from the bottom of my heart and with the clarity of my brain, words alone will not stop Iran.
Nuclear weapon and other weapons of mass destruction have no place in Iran's security and defense doctrine and contradict our fundamental religious and ethical convictions.
Stop your nuclear program. Why do you need underground bunkers? Why do you need ICBMs? Why do you need to enrich uranium? What is the justification of not taking this position? They say, well, it offends Iranian pride. So what? I mean, if this position was taken in the 1930s against Germany, it would have offended German pride, but it would have saved millions and millions of lives. You do not want to give this medievalist regime in Iran that throws acid in the faces of women, that oppresses gays, that subjugates an entire population, that export terrorism far and wide. Don't give these violent medievalists atomic bombs.
Oui, ראש הממשלה. איזה כבוד. מה אתה עושה פה?
הזמנתם בייביסיטר? קיבלתם ביביסיטר. איפה הילדים? ילדים, תירגעו, אנחנו לא נצליח לעשות כלום היום. Mr. President, Israel is acting to defend its security.
אדוני ראש הממשלה, יש פרשה חדשה. נתניהו והשבלולים בגינה.
מה?
ראש הממשלה, פרשת הכוסות המלוכלכות בכיור. זה בליינט.
נו, באמת.
ראש הממשלה, יש פרשייה חדשה.
נו, מה עכשיו?
האחרתי שטפטף על הספה.
אוי יו.
ראש הממשלה, פרשת הדגים הרעבים. והצמאים.
אבל אני מאכיל אותם כל יום. הם רוצים להסיט את תשומת הלב שלכם מהדברים החשובים באמת ולעסוק בשטויות.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is celebrating a big election victory.
Ladies and gentlemen, the purpose of my address to Congress tomorrow is to speak up about a potential deal with Iran that could threaten the survival of Israel. Now, disagreements among allies are only natural from time to time, even among the closest of allies, because there are important differences between America and Israel. American leaders worry about the security of their country. Israeli leaders worry about the survival of their country. And don't be fooled. The battle between Iran and ISIS doesn't turn Iran into a friend of America. Iran and ISIS are competing for the crown of militant Islam. For over a year, we've been told that no deal is better than a bad deal. Well, this is a bad deal. It's a very bad deal. We're better off without it.
Today, after 2 years of negotiations, the United States, together with our international partners, has achieved something that decades of animosity has not. A comprehensive long-term deal with Iran that will prevent it from obtaining a nuclear weapon.
This is your place?
Okay. And as we watch with hope and concern the great revolutions that are taking place around us, we have to remember what Chancellor Merkel just said, that this turbulence began not in Tunis, but in Tehran a year and a half ago. And it doesn't make any sense, and it's not just, that Iran and its proxies would be immune to the pressures for democratization, change, and reform. Iran's rulers promised to destroy my country, murder my people. And the response from this body, the response from nearly every one of the governments represented here, has been absolutely nothing. Utter silence. Deafening silence.
Apparently, the American Congress has a long distance to travel until it can get to know the nation and the people of Iran and realize and know that when, from a moral or religious standpoint in Iran, the religious scholars and leaders, in particular the leader of the revolution, have announced that the production, fabrication, the use and the stockpiling of nuclear weapons are haram or religiously forbidden, meaning that Iran is not pursuing nuclear weapons.
President-elect Trump, my friend, congratulations on being elected President of the United States of America. You are a great friend of Israel. Over the years, you've expressed your support consistently.
With this visit, the United States again reaffirms our unbreakable bond with our cherished ally, Israel. One of the worst deals I've ever seen is the Iran deal. My administration has already imposed new sanctions on Iran, and I will do more to prevent Iran from ever developing, ever, a nuclear weapon.
And I think we have to stop this country that chants death to Israel, death to America. Iran must be stopped.
But I've seen that you called the Ayatollah Khamenei the new Hitler of the Middle East.
Absolutely.
Why?
Because he wants to expand. He wants to create his own project in the Middle East, very much like Hitler, who wanted to expand at the time. Many countries around the world and in Europe did not realize how dangerous Hitler was until what happened happened.
What I'm about to say may surprise you, coming from the Prime Minister of Israel. But I categorically state, Iranians are among the most gifted and successful people in the world. Of course, there's one catch. When they leave Iran. Tonight we're going to show you something that the world has never seen before. Tonight, we are going to reveal new and conclusive proof of the secret nuclear weapons program that Iran has been hiding for years from the international community in its secret atomic archive. We're going to show you Iran's secret nuclear files. Iran lied. Big time. After signing the nuclear deal in 2015, Iran intensified its efforts to hide its secret nuclear files. A few weeks ago, in a great intelligence achievement, Israel obtained 0.5 ton of the material inside these vaults. And here's what we got. 55,000 pages. Another 55,000 files on 183 CDs.
Michael Hayden, whom you know, the former head of the CIA and the NSA, says he didn't learn anything new. Even the U.S. statement from the White House changed from has to had. The IAEA, they say they have no proof that Iran has done anything new. Disclosure as an issue should work every way. The United States should say what it has. You know where I'm going with this. A yes-no question for you. Does Israel have nuclear capabilities and nuclear weapons? Yes or no?
We've always said that we wonon't be the first to introduce it, so we haven't introduced it.
But that's not an answer to the question. Do you have them or do you not?
Of any country. It's as good an answer as you're going to get. Can you imagine how hard it is to stop Ronaldo from scoring a goal? I used to play soccer. Let me tell you, it's almost impossible. But the Iranian team just did the impossible. To the Iranian people, I say, you showed courage on the playing field. And today you show the same courage in the streets of Iran. Today I'm going to make an unprecedented offer to Iran. It relates to water. The Iranian people are victims of a cruel and tyrannical regime that denies them vital water. Israel stands with the people of Iran.
Wir sind ganz fest, ich habe das eben beim Präsidenten schon mal gesagt, mit Israel einer Meinung, dass alles getan werden muss, den Iran daran zu hindern, eine nukleare Bewaffnung zu bekommen.
Benjamin Netanyahu, there's nobody like him. He's a winner.
He's highly respected. He's highly thought of by all. He's done a great job as Prime Minister. He's tough, he's smart, he's strong. A strong Prime Minister is a strong Israel. And you truly have a great Prime Minister.
נתניהו, ימין, חזק.
לאופוזיציה בישראל יהיה קול ברור וחזק. ויש לי עוד מסר בשבילם. לא פחות חשוב. We'll be back soon.
חבר הכנסת הורוביץ, מספיק. Who is now set to become Israel's longest-serving leader in history. He won the election despite possible looming indictments for bribery and breach of trust.
Last night, at my direction, the United States military successfully executed a flawless precision strike that killed the #1 terrorist anywhere in the world, Qasem Soleimani. I have deep respect for the Iranian people. They are a remarkable people with an incredible heritage and unlimited potential. We're here this afternoon to change the course of history. After decades of division and conflict, we mark the dawn of a new Middle East. Israel, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain will establish embassies, exchange ambassadors, and begin the cooperate and work together so strongly to cooperate as partners across the broad range of sectors. They're going to work together. They are friends.
Ladies and gentlemen, Israel and states across the Arab world not only stand together in advancing peace, we stand together in confronting the greatest enemy of peace in the Middle East, Iran.
Der Mut und vor allen Dingen die Kraft, die von diesen Frauen ausgehen, das ist einfach unglaublich.
Viele Mädchen und Frauen tragen ihre Haare unbedeckt, legen den Hijab ab. Ich kann der Führung in Teheran nur sagen, was sind Sie für eine Regierung, die auf die eigenen Bürgerinnen und Bürger schießt? Wer so handelt, muss mit unserem Widerstand rechnen. Den Demonstrantinnen und Demonstranten und den Bürgerinnen und Bürgern mit iranischen Wurzeln hier bei uns aber sage ich, wir stehen für all das, was sie einfordern, für Menschenrechte und Frauenrechte. Wir stehen an der Seite des iranischen Volkes.
Top leaders from Israel and Saudi Arabia reportedly held their first ever meeting, potentially paving the way for a diplomatic victory ties down the road. Israeli media reports Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu flew to the kingdom for direct talks with Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
Israel has sworn in Benjamin Netanyahu as prime minister of the most right-wing government in the country's history. It's Netanyahu's 6th term as prime minister. He was forced out of office last year after more than a decade in power, but mounted a political comeback by joining forces with Israel's far right. Netanyahu is still, though, facing unresolved corruption charges. He denies doing anything wrong.
Und dann muss ich Ihnen sagen, Herr Bundeskanzler, das hat mich nun wirklich fast entsetzt. Ist Ihnen eigentlich aufgefallen, dass der Bundeskanzler in seiner Regierungserklärung nicht ein einziges Wort zu den Vorgängen im Iran gesagt hat? Meine Damen und Herren, in diesem Land werden seit 3 Monaten auf offener Straße Demonstranten erschossen.
Iran gefährdet auch im gesamten Nahen und Mittleren Osten Stabilität und Sicherheit durch die Unterstützung militanter Gruppen. Uns beide eint die Sorge über die nukleare Eskalation von Seiten Irans und über die letzten Meldungen über die sehr hohe Urananreicherung.
And indeed we've achieved peace, first with Egypt and Jordan, and most recently in the Abraham Accords with 4 other Arab states. I intend to lead the expansion of this peace to unimaginable heights.
Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu have met for the first time in person at the UNGA. The leaders discussed cooperation on energy and cybersecurity, as well as the Israeli-Palestinian issue, which has been a point of contention in recent years.
Now look at what happens when we make peace between Saudi Arabia and Israel. The whole Middle East changes. We tear down the walls of enmity. We bring the possibility of prosperity and peace to this entire region, but we do something else. You know, a few years ago, I stood here with a red marker to show the curse, a great curse, the curse of a nuclear Iran. But today I bring this marker to show a great blessing, the blessing of a new Middle East between Israel, Saudi Arabia, and our other neighbors. We will not only bring down barriers between Israel and our neighbors, we'll build a new corridor of peace and prosperity that connects Asia through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, to Europe. Israel is at war. We didn't want this war. It was forced upon us in the most brutal and savage way. But though Israel didn't start this war, Israel will finish it. Once the Jewish people were stateless. Once the Jewish people were defenseless. No longer. Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they've made a mistake of historic proportions. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come.
Wir haben bisher zwar keine handfesten Belege dafür, dass Iran diesen feigen Angriff der Hamas konkret und operativ unterstützt hat. Aber uns allen ist klar, ohne iranische Unterstützung über die letzten Jahre wäre die Hamas zu diesen präzedenzlosen Angriffen auf israelisches Territorium nicht fähig gewesen.
We didn't know about October 7th. Actually, we were supposed to have a meeting with the Americans on JCPOA renewal on October 9th, which was undermined and destroyed by this operation.
Iran is pledging revenge tonight, accusing Israel of attacking its embassy complex in Syria and reportedly killing at least 7 Iranian military officials. That includes a top general.
Iran launched more than 300 cruise missiles, ballistic missiles and drones toward Israel, raising concerns about broader conflict in the Middle East 6 months after Hamas attacked Israel. Israeli, American and other allied forces intercepted dozens of drones and the majority of missiles before they reached Israeli territory, officials said.
Das ist ein durch nichts zu vertretender Angriff. Das ist eine schlimme Eskalation der Lage und das ist in keiner Weise akzeptabel, nachvollziehbar und hinnehmbar.
Where to run? Where's safe? Gunshots ring out. Children scream in terror. There's chaos, panic. Help us, God, help us, O Arabs, he screams.
This is my grandson. I don't know where his mother is. He's just 20 days old. What can I do with him now? Where can I go with him? Where can I find his mother and father? Please tell me where to search.
I can also confirm today that I have reasonable grounds to believe, on the basis of evidence collected and examined by my office, that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Minister of Defense Yoav Gallant bear criminal responsibility for the following international crimes committed on the territory of the State of Palestine from at least the 8th of October 2023. The crimes include starvation of civilians as a method of warfare, willfully causing great suffering, serious injury to body or health or cruel treatment, willful killing or murder, and intentionally directing attacks against a civilian population, as well as crimes against humanity of extermination and or murder, persecution, and allegations of crimes of committing other inhumane acts.
Like all Israelis, my wife Sarah and I were shocked by the horrific assassination attempt on the life of President Donald Trump.
If I were the president, I would inform the threatening country, in this case Iran, that if you do anything to harm this person, we are going to blow your largest cities and the country itself to smithereens. There would be no more threats.
There is no place in Iran that the long arm of Israel cannot reach. And that's true of the entire Middle East. With every passing moment, the regime is bringing you, the noble Persian people, closer to the abyss. The people of Iran should know Israel stands with you.
More than 40,000 Palestinians have now been killed in Gaza, a majority of whom are civilians. And these numbers are from the Palestinian Ministry of Health, but they are backed up by the United States, by international organizations. We have seen countless children be orphaned. We have seen countless mothers lose their children. How much is too much, sir? At what point is it time to end this war?
Well, we'll end the war when we achieve our war goals of making sure that Hamas can't repeat such atrocities. But we're fighting this war in a just war with just means, in fact, with means that no other army has ever fought.
Questions are being asked as to how 5,000 encrypted personal communications devices could have been tampered with after Tuesday's unprecedented high-tech attack on Hezbollah members.
Herr Bundeskanzler, wir wissen von einer ganzen Reihe von sehr konkreten Fällen, in denen die Bundesregierung notwendige Zustimmung für die Lieferung von Gerät und Material nach Israel verweigert.
Ich will ganz persönlich sagen, wir haben nicht entschieden, keine Waffen zu liefern. Wir haben Waffen geliefert und wir werden Waffen liefern.
Well, obviously, they didn't know that they were buying it from Israel.
Who did they buy it from, or think they were buying it from?
We have an incredible array of possibilities of creating foreign companies that have no way being traced back to Israel, shell companies over shell companies who affect the supply chain to our favor. We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay, we're the directors, we're the producers, we're the main actors. The world is our stage.
People of Iran, as we see history unfold before our very eyes, I can only imagine what you're feeling right now. Your oppressors spent over $30 billion supporting Assad in Syria. Today, after only 11 days of fighting, his regime collapsed into the dust. But you suffer under the rule of a regime that subjugates you and threatens us. You know what this regime is truly terrified of? It's terrified of you, the people of Iran. And one day, I know that, one day this will change. One day Iran will be free. Women, life, freedom, zan, zandagi, azadi.
And why say that you're unhappy to sign it if it's Iran and their proxies who have threatened to retaliate against you and your team by killing you guys for taking out Soleimani?
Well, they haven't done that, and that would be a terrible thing for them to do. Not because of me. If they did that, they would be obliterated. That would be the end. I've left instructions. If they do it, they get obliterated. There won't be anything left.
President Trump is the greatest friend that Israel has ever had in the White House.
The common theme in all of these challenges is Iran. It is the single greatest source of instability in the region. Behind every terrorist group, behind every act of violence, behind every destabilizing activity.
We appreciate you being here, and we are a friend of Israel, as you know. I would say that I'm by far the best president that Israel has ever even thought of seeing.
If you summarize everything that I said up to now, what we did is we had peace going with the Arab world, Iran coming up, Iran putting a noose around our death, and Israel turning the tables on them from a situation where on October 7th people thought that Israel was doomed to making Israel the most powerful country in the region. So having done that, we smashed the Iranian axis, but we didn't finish the job. Remember, there's still more to be done. We have to finish the war in Gaza. And I very much welcome President Trump's plan to allow the voluntary relocation of Gazans who want to leave. But we have to make sure that Iran does not get nuclear weapons. A bad deal is worse than no deal. We need a good deal. And the only good deal that works is a deal like the one that was made with Libya that removed all the infrastructure.
Also grundsätzlich muss man wissen, dass das alles hier nicht umsonst ist. Also das ist Zeit, das ist Energie, das sind Ressourcen und der Kanal lebt von Patreons vor allem, ne? Und von Spenden, YouTube, PayPal und so weiter und so fort. Mein Gott, ich habe eine Sache nie verstanden, und zwar, wie viele Patreons haben wir? Ich will es gar nicht sagen, wie wenige es sind bei über 100.000 Abonnenten, ne? Aber wenn einfach so ein paar 100 oder 1000 Patreons sich dazu entschließen würden oder Menschen sich dazu entschließen würden, Patreons zu werden, 3 Euro im Monat, das ist doch nicht mal ein Cappuccino. Zahlt man in Frankfurt mehr als ein Cappuccino. Für ein Cappuccino mehr. Also 3 Euro im Monat, das ist ein Witz. Das ist eigentlich ein Witz. Das sind ein paar Klicks, die man machen muss, aber dadurch unterstützt man das hier. Weil das ist tatsächlich im Bereich des Möglichen, dass Grenzgänger einfach nicht mehr existiert. Also kann sein. Also wenn das finanziell nicht mehr zu tragen ist, dann muss man sich anderen Dingen zuwenden, die dazu führen, dass man die Familie ernähren kann. Also so hart muss man einfach formulieren, ne? Und deswegen nochmal der Appell an alle, denen es am Herzen liegt. Wie funktioniert es denn sozusagen bei Spiegel Online oder bei den großen Konzernen? Ja, die müssen ja auch ihren Content finanzieren. Spiegel Plus, alles ist hinter der Bezahlschranke und hier ist ja ähnlich. Man muss das finanzieren und das läuft eben nur über Patreons, über YouTube oder ich weiß nicht, welche Kanäle es da gibt, ja, aber es ist ja alles bei uns angegeben. Viel fällt nicht bei ab, das muss man auch wissen. Wir haben jetzt keine großen Sponsoren. Wir sind nicht käuflich. Wir bedienen keine Ecke so, nicht die Rechten, nicht die Linken, sondern wir sind absolut frei im Geist und das kann man nur finanzieren, wenn man eben unterstützt wird von den Zuschauern. Und bislang ist das sehr mau. Ich bin selbst schockiert, wie wenig es eigentlich ist. Und da muss man sich fragen, ob es einen wert ist, ja, dass man 3 Euro im Monat für ein Patreon-Mitgliedschaft ausgibt oder nicht.
Ja. Also wir haben uns immer dagegen entschieden, exklusive Inhalte zu machen. Du hast diese Bezahlspanke angesprochen. Ich glaube, das Wissen ist ein Anrecht aller Menschen und wir wollen niemanden ausschließen. Das heißt aber auch, wir sind auf Freiwilligkeit angewiesen und wie du es gesagt hast, es wäre schon gut, wenn jeder, der kann. Ja? Es gibt auch viele, die es machen, auch wenn es wenige sind. Diejenigen, die es machen, denen sind wir extrem dankbar, dass wir weiterhin diese Arbeit machen können, aufgrund dieser Unterstützung. Und das soll auch immer mehr und immer besser werden, die Arbeit. Und deswegen ist es wichtig, dass wir langfristig auch planen können. Deswegen, ja, danke dir für deine Worte und euch für eure Unterstützung und dann macht's gut. Ciao.
Ciao.